Hey, what's up? I'm Rio Cruz, and you are watching the Music Industry Contact YouTube channel where we do in-depth breakdowns of hit songs. Today, here in a second, I am going to be breaking down 28 Reasons by Seulgi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's Seulgi. I'm excited to get into it. Real quick, I want to ask if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and dropping a like. Comment down below what you thought of the song, if you had any opinions about it or things that you noticed. And if you enjoy these videos, consider supporting us on Patreon. We're really grateful to people who support us on Patreon because we can't monetize these videos on YouTube. So like I said, we're extra grateful if you support us over on Patreon. We've even got some extra special content over there for the people who support us. So if you do, thank you. That being said, I think let's get into the video. This is 28 Reasons.
Kiss your brother 그만 멈춰 더 깊어져도 못 느껴 my pleasure 짓궂은 반칙 떨리는 눈빛 그런 널 보는 게 참 재밌어 웃겨 Ooh, I'm breaking every rule 자꾸만 괴롭히고 싶은 걸 28 reasons 몰라도 돼 나쁜 의도 없어 내게 28 reasons 다 아는데 왜 또 다시 내게 기대 낯선 끌림 무기력한 너를 봐 feel so bad 정확하게 보여줄게 I'm not the devil 너 것도 엉망해 I don't care 망가질수록 나를 원해 I stay your treasure.
Okay, wow, that was a lot happening in such a short amount of time. So let's go back to the beginning real quick and go section by section.
I kiss your brother. 그만 멈춰.
So that's a really simple intro. And normally I would say like just doing quarter notes of something is kind of boring, but I don't know why it kind of works here. Maybe because that bass synth patch has this sort of like ominous thing to it. And the verse is very sparse as well. So maybe if you did too much there, it would sort of take away from the eeriness and the almost creepiness that the verse has to it. So I think that works. And then they come in with that swell. That's a classic little, tension building sound. Let's hear that one more time.
I kiss your brother. 그만 멈춰.
Really simple intro, but effective.
더 깊어져도 못 느껴 my pleasure. 짓궂은 반칙.
So at first, all we have in this verse is this like 808. I'm not even sure if there's an actual individual kick. I think it might just be the 808.
느껴 my pleasure. 짓궂은 반칙.
Notice how on the last line of every like little verse section, they run that last line through a delay throw, but it's not a normal delay throw. It's something with a plug-in like stutter edit or crystallizer on it or something that chops the sound up. So it's sure. That's pretty cool.
떨리는 눈빛 그런 널 보는 게 참 재밌어 웃겨.
Okay, this is such a subtle thing that I may just be imagining it, but I think maybe that the little click noise that's falling where a snare would fall, I think it maybe changes tonality between the first half of the verse and the second half. Let me listen closely one more time.
그만 멈춰 더 깊어져도 못 느껴 my pleasure. 짓궂은 반칙
It does. It's sort of like a it sounds like two snaps or something, and the at least the second little click in that sound is changing tonality and getting lower in the second part. That's a super subtle difference. It just sounds like a slightly tweaked version of the same sample. So that's one of the most subtle examples of changing your drum sound between two parts of a section. We've also got that one like sort of high-pitched reverby snare that separates the sections as well. You'll notice that this verse is extremely simplistic. And so they're doing some of the things that you would do in other songs to punctuate and to separate sections. But when you have some sort of like dark pop production like this, sometimes it can hurt it if you do like a full drum fill or something. So it's instead of just one hit, it's just a sample that goes. I can't make that noise with my mouth, whatever it's doing, but this little sound right here that goes. Whatever that is. Right, extremely subtle, extremely simple ways of sort of dividing the sections, punctuating the end of one with that hit and with the stutter edit on the delay throw. And that's how you make a verse kind of have this eerie feel like this, where the vocal is very up close and in your face. You'll notice there's not a lot of reverb on anything, but like I said, it's particularly sparse. There's not a lot going on. And also because of whatever key this song is in, I'm not good enough with my theory to just hear a song and know what key it's in. But because of the lack of chordal information, for me, I almost couldn't tell where the melody was going to go at first. I had to hear a few bars of this to be able to tell where the vocal melody was going to go and what is this going to sound like. I'm not really sure yet. It almost seems like ambiguous in a way at first because of the lack of chordal information. Okay, so we go into our pre-chorus and we lose our snare sound or click or whatever entirely. The 808, instead of just hitting these short punctuated hits, it's now like a sub bass patch. It's going whoa, whoa. It sounds like a pretty similar noise, so I'm wondering if maybe they just tweaked the settings on the same synth patch and made it so that it can hold out the release or the sustain longer on that patch. And also you'll notice it's gliding between the different hits. It's not going boom, boom, or boom, boom. It's going boom and sliding up to the next one, even if it's pretty quickly. Let's hear that pre one more time. I'm breaking every rule. Notice the contrast of how the vocal is treated between the verse and the pre-chorus. Now in our pre-chorus, as I've described it, reviewing some songs before, I think that a lot of people in K-pop seem to go for like floaty pre-choruses is how I describe them, where if everything is very like intimate and close and grounded in the verse, they'll get a lot floatier in the pre-chorus. You'll have some reverb on the vocal like we do here. You'll have the bass sustain a little bit more instead of being like very percussive and rhythmic and in and out. And often you'll have some sort of like secondary soft synth chord patch coming in the background. And I think we have that here as well. Let's hear. I'm breaking every rule. Yeah, that it almost sounds like some sort of like really soft marimba, but they're playing chords with it and it's sent to a bunch of reverb. So it goes and rings out for a little while. Again, that kind of adds to the floaty feeling that the pre-chorus has. I'm breaking every rule. We had another riser right there in the background. It was kind of more subtle. Maybe not because it was quieter, but maybe just because when we heard it in the intro, there's less going on. Now it kind of blends into the background of the soundscape a little bit more. But a lot of risers on this song between sections. All right, a lot going on in this chorus. So we're adding a bunch of trap hat type sounds. I think some of them are trap hats and some of them maybe other samples, playing pretty fast, pretty sort of like inhuman, like drum machine sounding patterns on the hats or hat related samples in the background. We've got a few like fast trap hat rolls in there occasionally too. We've got a string section that comes in playing sort of like walking melodies or arpeggiations, doing like bum 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 bum. We've also got Okay, we've got what I think is a new synth that's separate from the bass going on now. That's this kind of drone in the background that's going, and it might be a very simple sound to begin with, but what they're doing is they've got a resonance filter on that synth, and they're tweaking how much it's opening and closing, which is what gives it that sort of like wah pedal sound effect. We hear it right here again. That's going wow. We're also having that synth get chopped up a little bit. It chops in and out. It goes wow. With some simple effects like this, you can take what might not be a boring synth patch, but a less interesting one, and you can make it way more interesting by chopping it, having some movement. One thing I really like is what they're doing with the synth that I'm talking about, where they have it jump an octave real quick and come back down. Where it goes, that's right before the chop. That's one of my favorite things in synth bass, is when people turn on the glide and then they'll hit octaves real quick and have that synth bass or sustained 808 or whatever hop up for a second and then come back down. It almost reminds me of a human element of when you're having a real bass player that will be playing a line and then pop an octave out of nowhere real quick. I think it's a really cool sound. So the vocal has more reverb on it than it did in the verse, but maybe a little less than it did in the pre-chorus from what I'm hearing. Also, notice that there are gang vocals going on now. They sound pretty subtle to me. I don't think I'm hearing a ton of harmonies. It sounds like mostly doubles. Let me listen again real quick. Yeah, that sounds like mostly doubles, and it's not like a massive, overwhelming army of vocals. They're just sort of tucked to give a little bit of vocal width and to thicken the vocal up a little bit. There's a few doubles going on this chorus. So in the second part of this chorus, I don't know if this is chorus part 2 or post-chorus or whatever, but they add this little high whistle melody, the da 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 da. Let's hear that again. Yeah, da 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 da. Da, da, da. That's pretty catchy. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't like hint at that in the intro. Maybe have it really filtered and like super reverbed out, like 100% wet signal on a reverb with that, just to tease it. But like I said, I kind of understand why they did the intro the way they did. Keep it like really simple and sparse to keep that verse feeling eerie when it comes in. But that's a cool hook. Okay, I almost think I heard some harmony stacks come in on this second part, not necessarily singing the lyric with the lead vocal, but more doing like a choir thing in the background, doing a few like ha ha type things. Let me listen again. Okay, yeah, it's a little bit hard to tell for me because there's a lot going on in this chorus, but I'm pretty sure that I hear some vocal stacks way tucked in the background come in on the second half of this chorus. Not so much singing the lyrics, but doing like, ooh, ooh, and then they're not always there. They kind of come in for a second and then they'll duck out again. But I'm pretty sure I hear those in there as well. All right, so end of chorus 1. The energy in terms of how much sonic information that we've gotten throughout the song did this. Just a steady ramp all the way up, and now we've hit the end of chorus 1, and it's dropped back off again to go back down to verse 2. Yeah, that cool little descending click thing is awesome. It's little things like that, little subtle things that are great for this like dark pop production, unique percussion samples that are not your normal snaps and claps and snares and fills, but sounds that are kind of quirky and out there. And like, what was that? It sounds like, you know, droplets of water coming. I don't know, whatever it is. Not only does it descend in pitch, but it also sort of like slows down a little bit too. Like the space between each is increasing. It's getting slower.
멋대로 부숴 잔뜩 안 달랑거려 더 웃음이 나 사랑이란 그래 sweet and bitter 널 망치고 구원해 make your dreams come true.
Okay, so let's cover the differences between verse 1 and verse 2. Some of them are pretty subtle. So obviously the energy in the vocal is a little bit higher now that we're in the middle of the song compared to where it was in the beginning, where it was trying to be a little eerier and a little creepier. But my favorite difference is notice these little bongo drums that come in the background, because not a ton of the instrumentation for verse 2 actually is different from verse 1.
I don't care. I stay your treasure. 멋대로 부숴 잔뜩 안 달랑거려 더 웃음이 나.
They're pretty quiet, but they're there. It's like somebody's just playing bongo drums in between the phrases. Like that adds some really nice but subtle syncopation from what would otherwise be a rather straightforward beat. They do have a couple other things to shake it up. For example, there's a couple times where the kick will play like a double hit, where on the first verse it was just playing very straightforward single hits. It'll go bump, bump, and then the 808 will respond bum, bum, and hit twice instead. You'll see that right here. It also delayed that 808 for a second. Again, incredibly simple stuff. It's like, even if these are incredibly synthesized instruments and their drum machines and their synthesizers make it feel like a human being is playing it, what does that mean? That means they would do something like quirky there, that, you know, the drum and the bass are going to mess with each other like that.
Sweet and bitter, 널 망치고 구원해 make your dreams come true. Ooh, I'm making every rule. 빼앗고 다시 줄게 너의 숨.
Okay, pre-chorus 2 is different from pre-chorus 1 in a couple ways. One, we've got like that trap snare thing going on where it's like cha 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 cha. It's doing like triplet stuff syncopated against the not triplet beat. But aside from that, we've also got snaps hitting where like a normal non-triplet snare would be hitting.
Ooh, I'm making every rule. 빼앗고 다시 줄게 너의 숨. 28 reasons 몰라도 돼. 나쁜 의도 없어 내게 도무지 28 reasons 다 알았는데 왜 또 다시 내게 기대.
So the immediate difference that I notice on chorus 2 between it and chorus 1 is that whistle thing that I was talking about comes in right away this time. They're not waiting for the second half of the chorus to get to it. I haven't mentioned the melodies yet, but I think both of these chorus melodies are pretty catchy. That's the part 1, and then the part 2 is that. So clearly, after not hearing the song very much, I at least have the rough idea of both of them, the big parts. So clearly, I at least remember a pretty good idea of them after only hearing them a couple times. That's always the test to me of, you know, is it catchy? All right, let's check out this bridge. I right, so the bridge is pretty short, but it seems like what we do is lose some of the like hi-hat production that's going on for that bridge, but a lot of the other chorus instrumentation keeps going. It's just playing a new progression now. We've still got our sort of bass synth patch going on, the woo type stuff. We've got a new synth that comes in that seems like a big saw, and that's also got this effect that I was talking about of having a resonance on the filter for the synth and sort of sweeping that back and forth a little, and that gets you that wah pedal effect going on it. Let's hear that real quick. And then other than that, it seems like we just keep the kick and the snare. The vocal drops back to what sounds like a single vocal. Maybe there's like 2 doubles on it, kept really pans tight to the center just to thicken it up, but we're not doing big stacks anymore. But we do have stacks come back for 1 note at the end of the bridge to hit that oh with a big gang vocal. You can suddenly hear them come in on the left and right.
You're in danger, but it's okay. You're grown up.
And then the bridge ends with just like a pretty saturated ad lib right in your face, quiet, kind of creepy, drops back down to just the synth bass, the kick, and snaps. The energy's down here so that for the last chorus, we can shoot up and get really big at the very end.
Okay, you're grown up. 몰라도 돼 나쁜 의도 없어 내게.
Okay, so that's kind of an interesting misdirect coming out of the bridge because I thought we were going into a full-on chorus right away, even though she's hitting that yeah. I thought that was just taking the place of, you know, the first lyrical part of the chorus. But after we hit a few bars of that and the chorus instrumental, all the instrumentation drops out and we go to an a cappella, which is really cool. This is effective for a couple reasons. One, I think it helps you drill your hook into the listener's head one last time before the song is over, because they're only focusing on the vocal at that point. You've just yanked all the other instrumentation out. Two, for me, it gives me that kind of pre-chorus feeling where it feels kind of floaty and like the floor dropped out from underneath you a little bit right before you slam back down with the full chorus instrumentation. I think it's a great tension building technique, and I actually like using it a lot in my songs.
Reasons 몰라도 돼 나쁜 의도 없어 내게 reasons that I'm not 너도 다시 내게 기대 낯선 그림 무기력한 머리 feel so bad 정글을 보여.
So things that make this last chorus different from the other ones. The first one is that a cappella thing that I pointed out. That was really cool. The second, and I think the most prominent and noticeable, is the ad-lib vocal that's going on throughout the entirety of this last chorus. That's the one that's not singing with the other vocals, but doing riffs and runs in between them. Or if it is singing with them, sort of playing off of them and hitting higher notes, hitting really noticeable harmonies. It's almost like a second lead vocal. And this is a really effective technique, I think, for making your last chorus different. And you should really consider doing it on your choruses to make that last one stand out. Because me personally, I find that sometimes by the second chorus, I've spent, you know, all of my tricks for making that second chorus more interesting than the first one. And now when I'm trying to make the third and final one even bigger, it's getting too busy, or I don't have any more good ideas to make it different and interesting. You can end up making that last chorus too busy if you're not careful, if you're just trying to throw in all of these new instruments that people haven't heard for the rest of the song. That's why I think this can be an effective way of making that last chorus interesting without stepping on other stuff. It especially helps if you're working with a vocalist that can hit some really high or flashy notes, as well as a little candy for the very end of the song.
I don't care.
All right, and that was 28 Reasons by Seulgi. I'm still not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Before I give you my final thoughts on the song, I want to ask you to consider subscribing and dropping a like if you enjoyed the video. And like I said before, consider supporting us on Patreon. We're very grateful if you do that. But with that, I guess let's get on to my final thoughts. I really liked this one. I especially liked how eerie the verses were. That's my favorite type of pop music, is stuff that has a little bit of that like creepiness vibe to it, a little bit of eeriness to it. So I really enjoyed that. I think it has a really good dynamic range between the sections that have so little going on, like the verse, which are still effective despite being so minimalistic. And then the chorus, which is like just this big flashy rolling thing. And I thought the synth work was really cool as well. Sometimes me personally, I struggle to make synth sound interesting in my productions. And so I really enjoy listening to songs that give me ideas for, oh, wait, maybe I could, have it jump that octave and come back down. Maybe I could chop it up and have it come in and out of existence for a second. I was really entertained by the synths on this one. The chorus vocal melodies are definitely in my head. I can remember them right now. I don't know if I can remember the verse or the bridge, but chorus is the most important one. That's why you're always trying to make it the catchiest and easiest to remember. So there you go. Again, I say this with a lot of these, but some of the percussion samples were just really cool. They were sounds that I hadn't heard before. There were definitely like snaps and claps on this and more standard, trap snares in the pre-chorus too. And a normal, pop snare or clap on the chorus, but there were also those weird little click things that we had in the verse that I don't know what sound that was, and I always kind of like that for drum production. So yeah, overall, I think it was a cool track. I liked 28 Reasons. That was fun. Thank you once again for watching this video, and if you are a writer, artist, producer, or any type of musician that's looking to take your skills to the next level, you should consider applying to Adam's private mentorship, the Billboard 500 Club. I've been a member for a while now, and I feel like it's really helped me grow and learn a lot. Once again, my name is Rio Cruz. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.